Point two notes, multiple representations. Here we're going to go ahead and focus on the fact that if I have functions, and we're going to have functions throughout this whole class, they could be evaluated in a bunch of different ways. We're going to focus in on three different forms of that occurring. Here, this image right here tells us a story, and it's actually the same function three different ways. So sometimes we'll have different tables, different graphs, different equations, but this one is displaying the same thing in each of the versions. So I'm getting this picture here, and you probably are familiar, especially back in Algebra 1, with a table. A lot of the times we're either going to see it broken down into x, and if it's in function form, f of x. Of course, we could also see that as x and then the y. So this right here is our table. We're familiar with that. Of course, we have our graph as well. So our graph is another version of how we can have functions appear. Of course, when we see that, we're familiar with our graph being in the form where we have different points. It's an x comma y, of course, is the most familiar. And we could also have the x comma f of x. So we're familiar with the tables. We've seen that before. And I could see it's actually, if I kind of compare the table to the graph, those points right there are the same exact points that are in the table. Not always what we're going to have focused on, but in this situation it is, where we can see the graph display the function. And then finally, of course, one of the ones again from Algebra 1 that we're most familiar with is an equation, which is that item right there. Again, how is that going to be displayed to us? We're going to see it in a lot of different ways. We're either going to see f of x is equal to, and then something off to the side, or we can eventually see y is equal to, and then something off to the side as well. So three different versions, a table, a graph, an equation, of ways that we could represent functions. Remember that when we're talking about functions, we got to super be focused on the context of what's going on, both the labels and the units. If I'm talking about time, am I talking about seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, years? If I'm talking about distance, is it miles, kilometers, feet, inches, whatever the case may be? And this all comes back to this concept of our functions, which is if we're given a certain input, we put that in, and then, of course, find an output. When we're focused on those concepts, of course, input is x, and what we get out is y, or if written in function notation, f of x.